Okay, so this is the monitor that I use for everything. Well, everything monitor related at least. This is the Dell 2722QC. It's the face of a Windows computer, a Mac computer. It makes a great external display with power delivery, and it's actually surprisingly good for playing games at 60 frames per second. It makes for the occasional movie screen and even more occasionally a giant phone screen. And it's even the most featured piece of tech on my channel right now, but I still have trouble recommending it sometimes. Don't get me wrong, the display is beautiful. It's 27 inches of what is a very clear IPS display. It's 4K resolution and you have to get pretty close to start seeing pixels. It's height and tilt adjustable and can even rotate 180 degrees. Not to mention it's also VESA compatible. But with close to 1500 hours of usage, I've started to notice some of the quirks that come with using this display. Like the fact that using M1 Max, there's this weird flickering effect that goes on every now and then. I'm not really sure whose fault this is, either Apple or Dell, but it gets pretty annoying and I've gotten pretty good at avoiding it. And there, for some reason, is a high-pitched whining noise that comes out of the top of the monitor. This is something that just started recently and I really don't know if I should be concerned about it or not. The only way to stop it is by unplugging the monitor, so I guess I'll be doing that a lot more often. And out of the box, it's off by a couple degrees, at least horizontally. And no, I didn't install this wrong, this is how it's supposed to be, and if it didn't rotate, it would be even more annoying. But luckily with the rotation, you can kind of just rotate it and pretend that this isn't there, but kind of a weird quality issue. And I kind of suspect that the quality control for these monitors is kind of poor. It could just be my experience and the units that I got, but the first unit that I got was even worse than the one that I am now. The issues that I have are definitely small, compared to the first one where there's basically no using it because any static image for about 30 seconds was going to be burned in, and not to mention this flickering was horrendous to look at. The speakers are pretty bad, but you probably weren't going to use these as your main speakers anyway. You'll definitely be able to get away with a cheap pair of desktop speakers that are going to sound perfectly fine. And I know this is all nitpick stuff, but my old monitor, which was a fourth of the price, didn't do any of these things. In fact, the only issue that monitor had was that it didn't have any features at all besides turning on and turning off. But there must be some good things because I am still using this monitor even today. The design is very clean and modern looking, which I think will go well on most people's desks. And while the clarity is something I mentioned earlier, I don't think I'll ever be going back to a lower resolution monitor ever again. And having a built-in power supply means that you won't have any chunky brick hanging off your desk because it's built right into the display and all you have to worry about is plugging that plug in. And the reason why this is so helpful is that power supply sometimes on an older monitor would definitely weigh it down and put a lot of stress on the cable. And to help with that, there's a little cable management cutout where you can route the power cable through and the couple of HDMI cables that you'll definitely have going in your monitor. The monitor gets really bright. I personally keep it around 30% just because of my usage. And the only time that you'll have a real issue is if the sunlight is coming right on it. It's kind of hard to see past it. It doesn't get quite that bright, so try to avoid that. And to help combat that, it does have an anti-glare coating, which is actually really well done. Some monitors that have anti-glare coatings will have it pasted on there so heavy that it kind of has a matte finish to it, something that I really don't like looking at. But this one kind of meets somewhere in between where it's still really clear and does cut down on the glare a decent bit. The viewing angles are actually really good, especially if you need to rotate the monitor or do some other orientation that's not really typical. It has 65 watt USB-C power delivery, which is really good if you just want to have one cable go into your laptop and then you can forget about everything else. It has AMD FreeSync, which means that you're not going to get a lot of tearing if you decide that you want to play games on here. And it does have a couple of USB-A ports, one of which is kind of inconvenient and the other is actually pretty well hidden so that you can use it with the device that's plugged in with USB-C. Not to mention plugging it into these ports means you could get a little bit of extra power if you decide you need it. And it's pretty easy to assemble and take apart if you find that you switch locations a lot. And if having all of these features sounds really important to you, minus the power delivery, there's actually a monitor that does just that. In this case, the monitor that I would recommend is the Dell 2721QS. I know the naming can get a little bit confusing, but basically this monitor has most of the same features just without the power delivery and USB-C. So in this case, the 2721 features the same great panel, which is honestly the best part about this display. And what's even better is that when the 2721 is on sale, it comes pretty close to $250 US, which brings it more in line with the other 4K displays that are in this size range. So while I really like the 2722QC most of the time, I think that for most people, myself included, the 2721QS model is going to be perfectly fine. The reason being, it's going to bring basically 90% of the performance minus the power delivery, and it's going to be about half the price. But for right now, I'm going to use the monitor I have and let you know if that whining noise is anything I should be concerned about. That's been it. Thank you for watching. Leave a like if you liked it, and I'll see you in the next video.